So we're gonna get right back into the kind of deck analysis and strategy videos. Today I'm going to be talking about Raging Bolt and Ogerpon. Now this is a fairly successful and fairly popular deck. I'm looking at TCG, LimitlessTCG right now, and it ranks number 4 overall at present. Number 1 is Regidrago, number 2 is Charizard, number 3 currently is Cloth, which I would not have expected, but it's very interesting. It's a change of pace for sure. Raging Bolt is sitting at number 4, then we have Snorlax Stall at 5 and Golden Go at 6. These are just archetypal kind of, or archetypical analysis, you know, numberings or whatever, right? So the deck list that I'm going to be showing off today, I've got it labeled as Raging Bolt 2 here. This is the deck list that was played by Arnold H. at the Perth Regional, and he placed 7th with it. So overall, you know, fairly decent showing. I know off the top of my head some of the weaknesses and strengths that this deck has, because when I got back into the game, I started out playing a little bit of Regidrago V-Star, and then I migrated towards Raging Bolt, and I really enjoy the playstyle. I ended up gravitating towards Cerule Edge recently, but I do very much enjoy Raging Bolt, and a lot of the stuff in this deck is going to survive rotation. There are some things that are not, notably Radiant Greninja, but overall a lot of this is going to be viable past rotation, so this is a reasonable deck to learn if you're trying to kind of get into something that's going to be viable, you know, past April. And by the way, rotation was announced within the past, I think, 24 hours before recording this video for me anyways, to be, I think it's, I'm actually not positive on the date, but it's going to be this coming set, the Evolutions one, whatever they're actually calling it, is going to be the last set before rotation, and I think that it's in April that the rotation is actually going to be happening. So the set after the next one is going to be when rotation happens. So we've got about 3 months from now that you can still play with some of these cards, like fan favorite Radiant Greninja. But all that is to say, let's, you know, start analyzing this deck. Now you're going to see some similarities if you watch the Regidrago video, most notably Teal Mask Ogerpon here. We're running 3 of these. In my old deck list for this, the one that I was playing, you know, a couple months ago, I was running 4 of these, and we pared it down to 3 at this point. The Teal Mask Ogerpons serve 2 purposes here, similar to Regidrago, but in this deck you're trying to get just through your deck very quickly, but as opposed to putting the energy onto these Ogerpons and then switching them over to your Regidrago, you're just trying to get energy onto them so that it can be on them, because Bellowing Thunder, this attack, allows you to discard any amount of basic energies from any of your Pokemon that are in play, and the attack will do 70 damage for each one of those that, you know, each energy discarded. It's extremely versatile, and quite honestly, if you're trying to just have a near unlimited amount of damage available, Raging Bolt basically can't be beat in this current format. It can, I mean, we're only running, what is it, 12 energy cards, I think, total. It's, yeah, 3 fighting, 3 lightning, and 6 grass, but that is a significant amount of damage. I mean, it's going to be 700, 770, 840. You could max out at 840 if you had all of your energy attached. Now, obviously, you're not going to do that, but in general, it doesn't really matter what your opponent puts in front of you. It doesn't matter if they have Bravery Charms or a Heroic Cape. If you need to, with your Raging Bolt, you should be able to KO just about anything in the game, aside from a few notable examples, which we can talk about here. Ogerpon is actually not one that Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon is not one that gives Raging Bolt any trouble. I believe Mimikyu does, and I believe that this deck struggles into Mimikyu. It's why you would run something like Slitherwing, In the old deck list that I was running, it was Sandy Shocks with Magnetic Burst, which did 20 plus 70 more if you have at least 3 or more energy in play. I kind of like the Sandy Shocks thing because it was a 1 energy attack. So you could easily, set up Sandy Shocks just to get an attack out while also setting up your Raging Bolts for, actually attacking later on. But this deck list instead is running Slitherwing, which I have not actually kind of dealt with, but I mean, its damage is higher. However, it also nearly KOs itself. And you need 2 energy on it, so you would need to Professor Sada's it, and then also use your manual attach for the turn, and it's 2 fighting, so there's a few things about that I am not a super fan of, but I've checked a few deck lists. A lot of them seem to be running this Slitherwing, so we're going to give it a shot. Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon, I was actually kind of looking into this to figure out, like, well, why the heck would you run Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon? Like, what is the purpose of this? And I believe, let me go into edit deck here. It's not for Noivern. I was reading a comment that said basically you could, I guess, no, it is. No, it's not. Oh, yes, it is. Okay. Sorry, I was having a bit of a brain fart. The Demolish attack is the reason for it, not the Cornerstone stance. Covert Flight does 70 damage and prevents damage to it by basic Pokemon during the next turn. Obviously, you have to invest literally 3 turns into setting up Demolish, so it is a slow to set up attack. But in the Noivern matchup, Demolish is going to be the only real way to do any damage to Noivern or to a Regidrago that is set up a Noivern. It is very, very frustrating. I brought my Raging Bolt deck to a locals match, like my first time going to locals, and got set up against a Noivern Regidrago deck. And it was just impossible to do anything into that with this deck list that I had there. Yeah, there was nothing that could be done. Now, granted, I had thrown away a number of options, but the point is, if they were to just park a Noivern EX in the active spot and not have anything else on the bench, you would basically be locked out of actually winning that game. Because if you haven't taken enough prize cards, you can't KO the Noivern, and so you lose. So that is, I believe, the reason for Cornerstone Ogerpon. It's an interesting choice, to be sure. Other notable stuff that we got here, obviously Pheasantipity EX, obviously Squawkabilly EX. Both of those do the same thing that they do in every deck that runs them. Radiant Greninja, obviously, as well. Actually, Radiant Greninja is notable because in this deck, you're discarding energy to draw 2, and then Professor Sada's Vitality is a supporter card that you use to choose 2 of your ancient Pokemon and attach 1 energy from your discard to each of them, and if you do, you draw 3 cards. This is an amazing card. It is so good. It works so well for this deck. So what you ideally want to do with this deck is set up your your Teal Mask Ogerpons with energy on them, and then you want to attack, you want to attach energy, 1 of your energies to your Raging Bolt using Professor Sada's because it is an ancient Pokemon, and then your second energy you just manual attach from hand, and you can do whatever amount of damage you need to with Bellowing Thunder. In some cases, you will discard the energy from Raging Bolt. In other cases, you'll discard it from your Ogerpons. I didn't mention this yesterday, and I definitely should have. Teal Mask Ogerpon itself is actually a great Pokemon to use to attack into Charizard EX. And it makes the matchup fairly favorable for the Raging Bolt or Regidrago deck. Because, if we look at Charizard EX here, if the game loads properly, it has a 2x weakness to Grass. And whenever it's in the active spot, it should have 2 Fire Energy attached to it. Even if it didn't, though, this attack does 30 plus 30 more for each energy attached to it, so it's going to do 120 baseline by the time that you're actually able to use it. Which does not KO a Charizard EX just off the bat, so it does need to actually have, because it's going to be, even at 150 it wouldn't, so it does need to have both energies attached to it for you to get the easy KO on it, or you need to have one more energy attached to your Teal Mask Ogerpon to get that kind of in. I'm going to turn this music down just a little bit. Here. Nearly. That's too quiet. Right about there. Let's say. Yeah, so anyways, let's just talk about anything else notable. Night Stretcher is a very good card. Just put a Pokemon or basic energy from your discard pile into your hand. In decks where you discard a lot, you need something like Night Stretcher to kind of get you where you need to go by the end of the game, because without it, you're kind of just scrambling with no options. Energy Retrieval is also similar. Now, granted, you can use Professor Sada's for better effect a lot of the time, but Energy Retrieval is useful for your discarded grass energies from your Ogerpons to get those back into play. Nest Balls. We don't run any Ultra Balls in this deck, and we're running Nest Balls because everything that you could possibly get is a basic Pokemon. Boss's Order is obvious. Iono is mostly useful near the end of the game, when you would potentially need to not deck yourself out if you are very low in your deck. Pokegear 3.0, I don't think that we talked about it in any of the other videos. It allows you to just search out a supporter within the top 7 cards of your deck. In the early game, this can potentially get you something that you need, but in the late game, when you have very little cards in your deck, it's almost always going to find what you need, presuming that what you need is still in your deck. And notable addition to the deck that I haven't seen yet would be this Ancient Booster Energy Capsule. This was also not in my old deck list, but the Ancient Pokemon this is attached to gets plus 60 HP and cannot be affected by special conditions and would also recover from them if it had them. It's better than Bravery Charm for your Raging Bolts, and Bravery Charms could then be used on your Teal Mask Ogerpons or your Pheasantippities to get them slightly out of range of some attacks. Fairly good. It allows your Raging Bolt to not get confused or poisoned or otherwise, have issues kind of come up for it. So I like the addition. And that's about all that's notable. Pokestop as well is a good way to kind of cycle through your deck. And Switch Cart, obviously notable because in this deck, everything's a basic, so you might as well run Switch Carts. Prime Catcher and Pokemon Catcher. Prime Catcher is just extremely good. It allows you to do a lot when you otherwise wouldn't be able to. And Pokemon Catcher is obviously one of the most variable parts of the deck. Flip a coin, and if heads, you switch in one of your opponent's Pokemon, and if tails, it does nothing. You wouldn't want to run counter catchers in this deck because ideally you would be playing 2-2-2 and just winning the game. Like, you would be trying to take 2 prize cards, 2 prize cards, 2 prize cards. So you ideally would never be behind your opponent. If you are behind, then you're kind of already in trouble. So Pokemon Catcher is the most reliable boss without just playing boss. In a lot of situations, you need to be playing Professor Sada's Vitality to be able to attack on a turn. So Pokemon Catcher is your best way to get something that you need to be attacking in the active spot. So all that being said, I think we're going to press test deck here and show off how this deck would generally run. So we're going to say heads on this, just like we did last time. We get heads. This deck prefers going second because it's all basic Pokemon and all of them, well, most notably your Raging Bolt, can get set up to attack on turn 1. Now we got no basics, so we are going to have to pull a mulligan here. But yeah, because all of your Pokemon are capable of attacking, we actually got 2 mulligans. It's actually ideal to go second because a lot of the time you can set up for a KO on turn 1. Whereas any evolution decks would never really want to go second, well, it's not preferable a lot of the time for them to go second anyways. Now, Raging Bolt, similar to Cerule Edge, struggles a little bit into single prize decks. And that's because, like I said, you're ideally going 2-2 and 2. When your opponent has one prize Pokemon up front like this, it can lead to them getting KOs, you know, on your Raging Bolt early, and then you're struggling a little bit to kind of seize the game near the end. So we're going to start out by playing our Raging Bolt. We're going to play a Nest Ball here as well and search out a Teal Mask Ogerpon. And we can see while we're searching there as well. This is something that I didn't mention during some of my other videos, but it's worth almost always looking at what you have in your deck when you do that, so you know what's potentially in your prize cards. So we know that none of our Teal Mask Ogerpons are prized now. We're going to activate Teal Dance here, attach an energy on here. We got Prime Catcher. Prime Catcher is very nice because it's going to allow us to potentially pull up the Roaring Moon EX and get a KO if we're lucky turn 1, but we're going to see how this kind of turn plays out here. I would love to get another Teal Mask Ogerpon. I'm going to actually use Trekking Shoes here. Oh, Earthen Vessel is very nice, but for the sake of, we're ideally going to Squawk and Seize here, and so that's not super helpful. Pokestop is good, we can throw that down here. I will use Prime Catcher to move Raging Bolt into the active, and we'll throw Roaring Moon up there as well. Roaring Moon EX, notably, not the regular one. And then we will Squawk and Seize. Now, it feels very bad to throw away a Professor Sada's on turn 1, like so early, but ideally we will draw into another one, and we can't even activate it without any energy in our discard, so that's just going to have to be the way that it is. Now, let's use the... So we got an energy retrieval, we've got Pokestop. I think in this situation I'm going to spin the Pokestop and see if we get anything else notable here. So we discarded more energy, which is not exactly great, but we can work with it. In this situation, as things have played out, I do not believe there's anything that we can really do to get our Raging Bolt set up to attack this turn. So I'm going to attach Ancient Booster Energy, which will actually, in this matchup, this is a great opportunity to show this off. Brute Bonnet will not be able to poison us anymore, meaning that they can't get as much damage out as they would otherwise be able to. And I will also... I think we're going to Energy Retrieval. And we're going to grab one Lightning and one Grass. And then we'll attach one Lightning here. And Burst Roar allows you to discard your hand and draw 6 cards, which in this specific situation feels pretty bad because we've just used our energy retrieval and we don't have as much available to us here. I'm gonna use as much of the stuff in my hand as I can, just so that it's not wasted, but I don't really want to use the Earthen Vessel here because then it'll just make us discard more energy. Now granted, the energy in our discard is actually the wrong energy and we're gonna have 4 grass energy in there, but sometimes there's just nothing you can do about it. The only alternative would be not attacking and just leaving that stuff in our hand, which there's definitely merit to, but I am more in favor of actually attacking. Now, this deck that is being played by the opponent is Roaring Moon, and it's very annoying to deal with. I believe, yeah, Vengeance Fletching. This is actually kind of a very similar archetype to Cerule Edge, where you want to have a bunch of a specific type of card in your discard pile. This one does 70 plus 10 more for each ancient card in your discard pile, so it runs a lot of ancient cards. You can see right now it would be doing 100 damage because there's 3 ancients and then bosses in their discard. Obviously this is going to be like the regular version of the deck, not like an optimized one, so it's not going to be able to get through its deck nearly as fast, which gives us a pretty notable advantage. It also used Toxic Powder to just poison its own Pokemon here, which I'm pretty sure makes no sense. But yeah, generally this deck over here would be using or utilizing Dark Patches and so they would want to discard a lot of dark energy. I've seen Roaring Moon EX attack on turn 1. Like they're able to get their 3 dark energies onto it, and that can generally just be GG for any deck that has a 2-prizer up front. Obviously not on turn 1 like first play, but on turn 1 second play they can attack in with Roaring Moon and it can be devastating. We might go over this deck at some point as well. It's very, you know, neat to play, very tough matchup a lot of the time. The damage output is notably lower than, you know, you would get with Cerulege with Roaring Moon regular, but it is also a 1-prizer, and then Roaring Moon EX is able to use this to knock out instantly whatever Pokemon it wants to for 200 damage to itself. So I'm talking a lot about the other deck. I'm going to actually just play this. So we're going to put another Raging Bolt down here. We're going to... we could actually just attach and then attack. Let's see. Do we have anything else we want to do? Let's Nest Ball and see if we want to grab anything else out of here. If anything, maybe just another Ogre Pond. Although we already have 2 and we have a 3rd one available, so might not have been the best play. So let's use our basic attach here. Trying to think. I guess we could just Iono. It makes it so we can't use Professor Sawdust, but I don't think we're really going to go for that now anyways. Although it's worth noting as well that we've kind of refreshed our opponent's hand, but we took away 2 dark energies from their hands, potentially. So it's a little bit of a trade-off there. We could use, and I think we will, Energy Retrieval here and grab 2 grass energies back. We still don't have the right energies in our discard pile, unfortunately. Now let's use Teal Dance to attach again. It's almost always worth having energy on your backline with this deck because of how much damage you can potentially get out with Bellowing Thunder. We'll Nest Ball again, grab probably just a 3rd Teal Mask Ogre Pond. We could set up a Pheasantipity because they might be able to KO us on the reswing, but it doesn't look like they have anything set up enough to do that, so I'm going to play a little bit more greedy with 3 Teal Mask Ogre Ponds. We could show off the Pokegear here. This is going to check the top 7 cards of our deck, and we get a Professor Sawdust out of it. Might as well grab that so we have extras in case we need them. And I mean, it would still be nice to have the opportunity to get some more energy into our discard, but you know what? We can end up doing that with Bellowing Thunder anyways, so let's just go in. So you can see here, this attack can do up to 420 damage. This has 230, so we're going to choose energy. We're going to say 70, 140, 210, and let's discard 1 from this as well, 280. And that will get the KO on Roaring Moon. So we haven't been able to show off a Professor Sawdust in practice, actually, which at some point here, hopefully we will. But that's generally how you will actually, you know, be attacking. Now, like I mentioned before, the unfortunate thing here, if anything, is that each one of our attacks is going to require us to discard 2 energy, and we're going to be taking single prize Pokemon over and over and over again into this deck, which can actually burn you out pretty quickly if you're not kind of conservative with your energy. So we'll try our best to avoid that. We do have 3 Professor Sawdust, so we're probably going to be okay on that front, but as I mentioned, it's just worth mentioning some of this stuff because it can come up. So I'm going to Professor Sawdust here. We'll attach the fighting energy here, and we'll attach a grass energy there. We'll probably end up just discarding that for damage anyways. And let's do a manual attach here, so we're setting up this guy to potentially attack at some point as well. Earthen Vessel. Let's discard the Pokestop. We're at a point where we don't really want to get rid of too many more cards, so we're gonna do that. And let's attack in with Raging Bolt again. So this time we need to discard 3 energy to get the KO on this Brute Bonnet. Which, as I mentioned before, we're getting to the point where we're a little bit low on resources here. So this is a little bit rough to play into. Because I believe as well, let's grab 1 prize there. If I pull back up the deck list here, it's moving squawkily. That's actually probably the worst thing they could do unless they're just planning to retreat it later on. But, energy retrieval, we've already used 2 of them, so we only have 1 left. And that's if it's in our deck. We are in a little bit of danger here, just because of attack resource management. But we'll keep playing as if everything's fine. I think we will be fine because Professor Sada's will allow us to get enough energy attached that it shouldn't be an issue. So we're going to do a similar thing this time. That there. And then this time we'll do a fighting energy attached to this guy. And we could use an energy retrieval. I think maybe we hold off on that for this turn just because we don't necessarily need to. No, you know what? It's better to put the energy back into our deck even if they Iono us. So let's do that. We have the option to even attach it, and that might not be a bad idea. I'll do 1 attach onto this one because it's got the Bravery Charm. And I think we don't have another Bravery Charm. And we're getting pretty low on cards, so I'm just going to attack it now. Bellowing Thunder. And this time we're taking a 2 prize Pokemon. Like I said, it doesn't really make any sense for them to have left this in the active spot, so that's just kind of the CPU being silly, I would say. And let's do that there. So we're setting it up so that we can get 2 energy, the proper energy, onto our 2 Raging Bolts next turn if we need to. And we're keeping some grass energy, you know, just in case, because ideally you want to have the lightning and fighting energy in your discard. And we're just about to bring this game home. The AI still sending weird emotes. I don't know why they would program the AI to do that. It just seems strange to me. And as for this deck, they've now set up 4 Roaring Moons. None of them are able to attack. They've put their energy on a bunch of different Pokemon. Doesn't make any sense what they're really doing here. We're going to use Professor Sada's. Put a lightning on each of these guys. That'll make us draw 3. Now it's worth noting as well, as you get to the end of your deck, Professor Sada's can become kind of a curse and a blessing. Because if you get to a point where you have 3 or less cards and you have to Professor Sada's but you can't win that turn, you will deck yourself out next turn. So that is something to kind of, you know, just watch out for, I guess. It's not really much you can do aside from just try to play a little bit conservatively. And we're already set up to take the KO, so we're just going to do this, discard whatever we'd like to. It doesn't really matter. Do a little bit of bonus damage this turn, and that'll be the game. And there you go. So that is roughly how you would play Raging Bolt. The fact that we were playing against Roaring Moon, you know, confused me a little bit there. That is roughly how you would play that. Very, very interesting deck. It can go very fast. I mean, honestly, in a lot of scenarios, I go through my deck faster with Raging Bolt than I do with Cerulege, and Cerulege is set up almost exclusively to discard through most of your deck. So, very, very nice. Burst Roar is a nice option if you just can't get set up, but ideally, you would be able to attack on your first turn going second using Bellowing Thunder and just take some quick, easy KOs. Yeah, that's about it for this one. If there's anything that I missed, let me know in the comments. Or if you have any questions, if, you know, you end up trying out Raging Bolt and say, hey, how do I deal with this matchup? Just let me know. I will try my best. I've got a decent amount of playtime with this one, and so I should have some insight. And otherwise, yeah, if you liked the video, feel free to leave a like, and thank you for watching.